All right. Good afternoon. Thanks to the past racing fan. I am Swerb, and I'm joined here by Jay-Z.
Hello, hello. We are going to be your tour guides through the magical world of Hyrule today. So we've already started, so let's go ahead and talk about the runners really fast. Ninnyz, he runs a lot of different games. According to speedrun.com, his PB for this category.
Yeah, it's PB for NMG is a 130.08, I believe.
That is correct. In crossproduct, pretty big on randomizers in general, and especially Super Metroid. His NMG PB is 143.25.
Yeah, going into this, we have Ninnyz sitting at 1-1, and crossproduct at 0-2 in these group stages here. So Ninnyz will be looking for the win in this race to kind of clinch his way into the bracket stages.
Yep, and then it's certainly not a guaranteed race for Ninnyz. There's still a lot of things that can go wrong, especially in the later game. And with crossproduct's PB, it's one of those times that he can easily, it's not unreasonable to see like a 5-10 minute PB out of him still.
Yeah, certainly, depending on how much practice he's put in recently, how far off he is from some of the best and stuff. And as you mentioned, there can be a lot of things that can go wrong in the latter half of this run. So right now we have them kind of neck and neck through Escape. Escape's a pretty kind of chill start to the speedrun, if you will. You can definitely see some kind of small, kind of just optimized movement Ninnyz is using that can kind of show that he's a little more experienced in this escape sequence here.
Yep, just some minor RNG things to deal with, but pretty straightforward. Not too much danger. We'll see what strat both runners go for on this ball and chain guard coming up. Then he's going for the optimal 8/. Same with Cross. Cross needs to get a little bit careful in getting that hard.
Yeah, it's good to recognize getting dropped down to 1 heart there, being 1 hit away from death, just going back for the safety, which is much better than dying to ball and chain guard. You can't boomerang Zelda! Just treating her like a key.
Not sure if I've seen that before.
Which I guess in a way, she's sort of like a key in the start of this game. Needed to get to the sewers portion of Escape. But yeah, definitely good adaptation on crossproduct there. Recognizing that he's low on health. Dying to that ball and chain guard will send you back to the beginning of like this escape sequence, the beginning of
It'll send you straight to the main entrance of the castle.
Yeah. So that is a huge time loss. Yeah, just seeing very kind of clean movement on Ninnyz's part. Doing his best not to, kind of how crossproduct was zigzagging back and forth along the hallway there, which you sometimes want to do to avoid getting hit by guards. Getting knocked back in the wrong direction is going to be kind of the biggest time loss you can have during Escape. But you also just want to minimize wasted movement.
Small optimization that you're seeing from Ninnyz is whenever you come out of these spiral staircases, you want your first input to be left or right, or else you get what's called stair lag.
Yeah, definitely. So there's a lot of little things like that. Obviously, there's some pumping in the water there to optimize some movement, which gets mentioned a lot, which does add up over the course of the run, but definitely in Escape, it's just kind of the little things like reducing stair lag, not taking hits that are knocking you in the wrong direction. And so he's making a very nice time climbing these stairs at 540. Definitely be getting himself a sub-6 escape, which is kind of the benchmark a lot of the higher-end runners of this game are looking to hit for this escape sequence.
555, really nice. Probably see both runners pick up Sanctuary Heart right here. That one extra heart, it doesn't seem like it would be that big of a deal, but there were several instances in the game, several points in the game where that one extra heart gives you an extra hit. Some other places not so much, but overall it's a really cheap safety. It gets a lot of use. Even in the early game, then we'll talk more about that in a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. It only takes a few seconds to grab. And anyone who doesn't do so, I think, is just absolutely insane, and it's asinine. I mean, not really. Once you get good enough at a game, I understand. But yeah, the one heart helps a bit early on, but it really does have a lasting effect throughout the run. All the way up into pod. If you go into Helmasaur with full health with that safety, you can take an extra hit compared to if you didn't grab the Sank Heart. Alright, really nice movement on the way to Eastern from both players. Honestly, walking through that a screen cross product just past with all the Octorocks can actually be surprisingly tricky early on. Because generally, obviously, you want to avoid slashing or using a boomerang whenever you can, just because it's a little bit slower. But recognizing when it's better to do that rather than risk taking a hit is also a sign of a well-versed player.
Yep, and then sometimes that hit helps you with a little bit of a damage boost, but your health is still a premium right now. Yeah, coming up on Ninny's side, there's supposed to be 4 skeletons that spawn, but walking a very specific path through the room, we only spawn 2 of those skeletons.
Yeah, they spawn in kind of a plus formation around Link, based on when you kind of hit a trigger in the middle of the room there. So kind of doing it a little bit above that middle pot there, as crossproduct just demonstrated, causes 2 of them to kind of try to spawn, one where that pot is, and then one in the wall. And then by killing the other 2 quickly, the game just kind of goes, oh, there's no enemies in this room, and opens the door.
Using some iframes from that Popo and then those anti-fairies, Ninnyz does a little bit of a skip in this room. You're supposed to kill all the other enemies to make those anti-fairies fly away to get over that, to get that switch underneath the pot. And then he had a little bit of a mess up there, but with that, and especially with that Sank Heart, keeps him in pretty safe health range.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the first parts where that Sank Heart can make kind of a difference. Obviously, both players would have made it just fine with 3 hearts. But it can be a nice little safety net in case you do mess up the damage boost in that room. Ninnyz making quick work through the back half of that dungeon. You got a nice 5-arrow drop from that red Igor right before the boss, which wouldn't make a difference if you don't get it right now, but it definitely does come in handy a little bit later.
It was a really nice recovery on Ninny's part as well when he shot that arrow to the left-hand side. Oftentimes, if you accidentally shoot the wrong direction, you're going to throw off your timing a bit. The big key point in that fight is you want to kill the last 2 Armos Knights at pretty close at the same time, just so you can skip the enrage phase of the last Armos.
Yeah, definitely. If you let only one of them remain alive like this, it gets this like aggressive stomping pattern. But more importantly, they recover any damage that was dealt to them. It turns them back to full health. So you try to bypass that by shooting 2 arrows into one early, which crossproduct did, but unfortunately he missed the 3rd arrow, which caused the enraged state to happen, and then he had to use a few extra arrows. So we can see that he's already down to 3 arrows, with Ninnyz sitting at 8.
Yep, and arrows are definitely a premium in this run. It's like there's not a whole lot of options that aren't too far out of the way in this run. Yeah,
definitely. Each additional arrow pickup you have to go out of your way to grab is going to cost you at least like a second or 2, depending on when and where you have to do it. So managing your bombs and arrows is a big part of this run, and being aware of where kind of safety pickups are.
Yeah, we saw the first instant. Yeah.
Yeah, you want to talk about that?
So the version that we're using, it's the Japanese 1.0 version. There's a few specific reasons why we use this one. First and foremost, the text is quite a bit faster than the English version, and exclusive to 1.0 version of Japanese, there are some additional glitches that we have access to. Whenever you spin your sword and then 1 frame later you hit dash, it puts Link into a glitch state. And then if you just barely touch the stairs and come right off, it'll basically let you run at full speed and change directions at dashing speed.
Yeah, it's a very nice state to be in, because it basically gives you full movement control over Link while he has like sprint speed. Basically, like kind of negating any of the downsides of having to dash in the first place. This is like the startup animation to starting a dash, and all of that is gone. And there's kind of a lot that goes into just general movement in this game, and being mindful of whether it's even worth it to dash in a certain area or not. But when you can have just full movement, it really doesn't matter.
Generally, you want to be able to dash at least 4 or 5 tiles to make it worth it. Crossroad getting a little bit beat up by the guards in the bush there.
Yeah, it's a little rough. He's going to be going into desert here with 2.5 hearts. Desert isn't particularly dangerous, though. However, you can take like kind of a stray laser in a couple spots, which will hit him for a heart. And Lambos the boss can definitely dish out some damage, so...
Yeah, especially since it's pretty RNG heavy.
We got Ninnyz just picked up the gloves, which is the reward for this dungeon. Allow him to enter the back half of the dungeon, and then later climb Death Mountain onto the third part of the third dungeon of the game. Have cross product kind of dashing past that middle pod there, which actually has a 5 arrow drop. Definitely would have been worthwhile for him to pick up. It's one of the quicker arrow pots to grab. And put him at 28 arrows, same that Ninnyz has, and it's nice. At least for me, I love having as many arrows as possible against Lamolas.
Definitely,
because I swear your arrows will just go right through them, man. They're impossible to hit.
Yeah, and you still want a healthy amount of arrows leaving landmillas. So Ninnyz is getting ready to walk into that fight. The first set, where they first spawn is always going to be the exact same spots and the exact same timing. So the goal is to try to get 2 or 3 arrows in one, and then from there try to balance the damage out between them.
Yeah, for sure. You definitely want to maximize that first cycle, because as you said, it's a very RNG heavy fight. Where they're going to spawn after that, how long they're going to be in the air, all of that is just random afterwards. And that can even cause them to start spawning in a different order if one short hops and one long hops, which can kind of throw off your kind of tracking their damage in your head. But there goes cross product. He picked up another. He knows about the arrow drop right there in the top left. Those 4 pots before the boss all have useful things under them. Hearts, arrows, and a small magic drop. So yeah, he's sitting at 28, which is a good call.
Meanwhile, while Cross Product is dealing with this RNG form with landmillas, Ninnyz is setting up for a minor sequence break. He's gonna hop into water. He doesn't have the flippers yet, but he's gonna swim anyways.
Yep, very smooth fake flippers from Ninnyz there. There's a pretty easy setup for this particular fake flippers usage. If you kind of line up with that bottom cliff like he did there, and then go press all the way up against that bush, slash it, and then just hold top or up and right, it will line you up exactly 1 pixel away from the screen transition, which you can then jump in the water, hold right, and that sets up the fake flippers glitch. We do this just to take that Zora warp up to Death Mountain, which is like several seconds faster than just running up to Death Mountain.
Around 8 seconds. And Cross Project is leaving Landmollas with a pretty healthy arrow count as well. And he's got pretty good rupee count to set up for the tree pull route after he gets done with Hera.
Yeah, he's already at 57, so that's pretty darn good. Ninnyz is going to be... Is that sitting at 5? Which means he's going to be looking for about 10 more rupees or so. Maybe 5, but he'll get some of those in... whatchamacallit, Egnim's Tower.
Yeah.
Kind of the first big rupee sink of the game is the entrance to Palace of Darkness, the first dungeon of the Dark World, where you need 110 rupees. There's a couple different ways you can route in those rupees. Generally, you either pick up the rupees behind Sahasrara after you get the boots, or you do a tree pull, which we'll see a little bit after Hera here.
Not really a whole lot to say about Hera for another few floors. Right now it's just a little bit of a waiting game. Looks like Ninnyz is trying to set himself for a boom dash.
This is the best room in Hera. Mostly just because Hera is I hate Hera, man.
Yeah. No, that doesn't look like he's going for it now.
Nothing good happens in Hera after you go upstairs.
Yep, and then Boulder decided to play nice with cross product in his climb.
It's definitely nice. The boulders can be absolutely brutal to use sometimes. And entering Hera with like half health or something can be a little dangerous. And then he's grabbing his big key and he's going to start his Hera ascent just as cross product enters, kind of high-fiving in the lobby here. And he's making really quick work of that beetle room.
Okay, coming up on the knee side is he's setting up for the first bomb jump of the game. The game expects you to go up one more level and fall down by that big chest, but if you line up within 2 pixels from the top of that hole, you'll be able to bomb jump across. Then that's if you don't want to dash and bonk. And then doing the bonk shred gives you 6 pixels.
Yeah, it gives you a lot more leeway. There are some setups to kind of line up right next to that pit, 1 or 2 pixels away, to do it without the bonk. They're marginally, like very marginally faster. Generally, they look really swag, but they're not generally that big of a deal.
And then he's handling Moldrum pretty well.
That was a really quick, clean Moldrum fight, which is always nice. Anyone that's seen or played this game knows that Moldrum can be a big old bully. Ninnyz making really quick pace of the light world. So he's collected the 3 mystical pendants, and now he can go collect his Master Sword over in the forest.
Meanwhile, we're gonna go ahead and watch Cross get his bomb jump, trying to line up for that pixel.
Oh!
There's a backup bomb here, fortunately. He knows about that.
Yeah, that's something you have to be a little conscious of, is dashing and picking up the bomb is on the same button, so you gotta make sure to turn. But nice recovery. Yeah, and meanwhile, Ninnyz is started his first tree pull here before going into Lost Woods.
So what comes out of the trees isn't random at all. There are 3 different things that can happen whenever you pull a tree. And what comes out is based on how many enemies you have killed, as well as if you got hit since then. So that first one is, so he's killed more than 4 enemies since the beginning of the game. So, but he's also gotten hit, so that gave him 4 blue rupees. And then from now until right before he leaves Lost Woods, he's going to be killing 4 enemies. And then without taking a hit, that'll give him 4 red rupees. And then once you grab those, he'll just be 5 rupees short for Palace of Darkness entry. So he'll be grabbing a blue rupee pot in the middle of Agate Tower.
Ooh.
Oh no.
Oh, you don't want to see that. That's what I'm saying when Moldrum can be a big old bully. You gotta be... It's so easy. Yeah, if you just take a straight hit, a knockback to knock you off, and then going down the middle hole drops you 2 floors. Falling off the sides drops you 1 floor, which is a kind of like obviously not great, but definitely that middle hole exacerbates things even more, having an additional floor to climb up. And then when you get back up here, somehow this worm has gotten all his health back.
Yep, and then crossproduct can making great use of the mechanics. Like whenever mold armor is hitting you towards the edge of towards the hole, as long as you're facing to go back, or as long as you're holding the D-pad to go back onto the platform, and you have that sword out, that's going to prevent Link from falling.
And we got Ninnyz starting Egnum's Tower here, which is kind of like a big, like one of the big, like first big execution heavy like gauntlets, I guess. So kind of that first room he did very well. You want to spin slash that left guard there and take him out with either 2 arrows or a combination of arrows and sword beams, and then set up for a double spin on the right guard. And then the second room there, he didn't pick up the mushroom in Lost Woods, which is kind of the last safety players tend to hold on to besides the Sanctuary Heart. But kind of like when you get to that 130, the low 130 PB range that Ninnyz is in, it's pretty typical to have dropped that. So you kind of want to manipulate a fairy drop for much later in the game, so you want to carefully handle the second room you had here. I imagine crossproduct will be picking up this mushroom. Yeah, here it is. Getting double teamed by those red sphere guards. That room can be very frustrating. Handling that next room, the circle of pots room there, very well. You got the good RNG from the right guard there. You want to throw the 2 pots at the center guard and then pick up the key he drops the boomerang if possible. But depending on what the right guard does, you have to react to his RNG.
Okay, so Aghanim fight. So Aghanim, he works in cycles of 5. The first attack of every single set of 5 is always going to be an energy ball that you can spin back or just slash back and hit Aghanim with it. And then attacks 2 through 4 is a 50-50 between getting energy ball or blue balls. And every 5th attack is always going to be the lightning, where he goes back to the middle and does lightning straight down. He can, assuming that no energy balls are missed, you can see anywhere from 0 blue balls to 15.
Yes, and 15 is astronomically low odds of happening.
Yeah, so far I've seen 1 on any side.
Typically you'll see about 3. So you kind of, if you get 3, you go, it kind of sucks, but, you know, it's expected. Start to get more than that, you can start complaining. Anything less, you should be pretty happy about.
Ideally, you would like to see less than 3. At 3, 7, and was it? Is 10 the next? You'll see an extra lightning cycle. Ideally, you only want to see 1.
Yeah, because each blue ball costs you about 5 or 6 seconds, and the same with a lightning attack.
And that was a pretty solid light wall from Ninnyz. crossproduct starting his climb through Agatar.
Handling this room slightly differently than Ninnyz. That first room you can also do a spin attack strategy that crossproduct was using there. You want to wait a little bit longer than he did. You want those 2 guards to overlap a little bit, and then you can kind of hit him with a double spin. But still, just hit them both again right afterwards pretty quickly. Getting a little stuck in this maze here. And then over on Ninny's side, we have a fairly straightforward trip over to the first dungeon of the Dark World, Palace of Darkness. Things are about to get dark here. Coming up in just a second will be everybody's favorite little monkey, Kiki, which is what we needed the 110 rupees for.
He's basically like a locksmith. It's like, really, 100 rupees to open up a door for us? It's like, it does cost quite a bit in real life to, if you ever lock yourself out of your own home.
Well, I don't know, it seems like he has a pretty big monopoly, at least over in this part of Hyrule, so...
Yeah, ain't nobody else...
Count your blessings, I guess.
No, nobody else to do it, so... That's allowed in this.
Maybe you can go find the thief that opens up the purple chest for you. Maybe haggle him down.
That sounds like a good option. Also, in Palace of Darkness, you see extensive mirror usages. A good third of this dungeon is mirroring back as soon as you get your next key.
Yeah, we've already seen a little bit of use of the mirror in Hera. To return to the front of a dungeon. It's kind of its secondary use. Its primary use, obviously, to warp you from Dark World to Light World. And I'm trying to remember for, like, the life of me. I can't remember if as a kid, if I ever knew that you could warp back to the beginning of a dungeon with the mirror. Because it's, like, a very useful feature, but I don't think the game ever really tells you about it. And we got cross product in the middle of his Aghanim fight here. I think that was his first blue ball. There's another one. Cross product slashing him and electrocuting himself. That's kind of like the biggest, your biggest nemesis in this Aghanim fight is just like kind of boredom, because it's just, what else do you do?
And then meanwhile on Ninny's side, he's setting up for the hammer jump. He has to find two very specific pixels, two very specific Y pixels. One for where the bomb is dropped and one for where he needs to end up. Just so it will prepare him straight left so he can just walk through that rail. The game has some weird properties whenever a rail is next to a hole and you're on it.
Yeah, so you boosted himself through that rail. As you mentioned, two specific Y pixels for the bomb placement and where Link has to stand afterwards. You have a lot of leeway in the X direction. Ninnyz performed that hammer jump very quickly, very admirably. It's a very nice time save, saving about like 45 seconds or so, I think. If you don't do the bomb jump, you have to kind of loop around to the U-room in the basement with all the rupees, grab a key, come back up, navigate the dark maze. It's a whole big ordeal.
And meanwhile, Cross Product is making his way over to Palace of Darkness now. Didn't see how many blue balls he ended up getting in the end.
Yeah, I didn't either. I feel like I only saw the one lightning attack, so it might have only been two, but I'm not totally positive. I was focusing on Ninnyz for a second there. Turtle Room getting a little away from Ninnyz there, but recovered nicely. Now he's gonna go fight the big guy himself.
The Homosaur King. And this boss, it is definitely the gatekeeper for this run. It is a very tough fight in general. A lot of RNG, especially considering those fireballs coming out from time to time. He hits for a whole 2 hearts of damage. And we only have 7 hearts. That was a nice double spin.
Yeah, that was really nice. Yeah, he has a lot of RNG, and once that mask comes off, he can become very aggressive and just charge to the bottom of the room like that. And it can be very hard to deal with, and he's handled it admirably.
Yes, so when Homosaur still has his mask on, he will only choose one of doing the tail whip attack as well, or the fireballs. But once that mask comes off, he can do everything at the same time, and it's really hard to predict how to avoid everything.
Yeah, it's definitely when the Dark World in general is when the game starts being like, alright, it's gonna get real now. And there's a huge difficulty spike, but Homosaur King definitely kind of embodies that. Doing 2 hearts each, no matter what attack he hits you with, so you're gone in 3 or 4 hits, depending on whether you picked up that Sanctuary Heart or not. Which is why I think kind of like that fight in particular can be one of the biggest reasons to pick it up.
Yeah, but then after Palace of Darkness, the game does give you quite a few options as far as which dungeons you can do next. So the next goal is we want to upgrade our sword. So instead of going to Dungeon 2 Swamp Palace, we're going to go straight to Dungeon 4 Thieves Town so we can get the Titan's Mitts, which leads us to the Tempered Sword.
Yeah, so the game does kind of open up. You are funneled into the Palace of Darkness as the hammer kind of locks off the rest of the Dark World. From there, you do have options. You don't have the same hard gates you did before. Things are numbered, so we are going to be heading to Thieves Town, which is numbered as the 4th dungeon of the game. And then we'll backtrack to hit dungeons 2 and 3 a little bit later.
Yep, but first we need to get some equipment first so we can fly around. So the full category name before this is No Major Glitches and No Save and Quit. So the only time that save and quit was allowed for the sake of this permit, we didn't mention this back when they were doing fake flippers, but if they got hit while doing that, you soft lock the game. If you don't save and quit out of it. Nicely dodging Usain Bolt.
Yeah, cross-product getting some nice arrow drops in that mimic room at the end of the Palace of Darkness here. So he's sitting at 24 arrows, which is actually really nice. So it means he doesn't really have to worry about picking up any extra arrows until much, much, much later in the game. And then he's activating this bird flute here. This kind of overworld sequence between Palace of Darkness and Thieves Town is kind of one of the more extensive ones in the way this run is routed. And he's been, well, besides that little hiccup right there, I was just about to compliment you, Ninnyz, come on. And say he's been handling it very well, very nice overworld movement on his side.
Still pretty solid handling overall, though.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, there's just that one little hiccup. You're just a little bit too far to the right there, and just... The bushes have, like, these weird properties in this game that is never really understood, but, like, if you are, like, halfway lined up with them, you bonk off of them instead of sliding off of them or dashing through them and cutting them with your sword.
Nice fight from cross product.
Yeah, very nice on the sword fight there. making use of the spin slashes. Take care of that second phase safely and efficiently. Meanwhile, on Ninnyz side, we have the Thieves Town dungeon. He's on the front half here, which is kind of like a labyrinthian, like a set of 4 rooms next to each other with these second floor and this lower floor. It's very maze-like and kind of hard to navigate around when you're playing this game casually. But we know exactly where to go, so he was in and out real quick. Yeah, no problems there. It's kind of funny, like how much the dungeon changes when you know how to handle that first part.
And he's in a pretty terrible room. He was hoping to find one specific pixel that lets him dash all the way up the middle without hitting the spikes or anything. And then there's those other flying enemies. We call them Patricks. Sometimes it's kind of wreck your day and doesn't allow you to make it through. So did a really good job reacting to their positions to not take any damage.
Yeah, that conveyor hallway there can be very tricky. Like you said, there's all those enemies in there. They all have different RNGs that can happen. So you want to try to find that center pixel as you dash the way through, but then you can have RNG that will just knock you out of the dash anyway. So it's a lot of like reading and reacting in that room. But he's flying through the rest of the dungeon after that, making his way into this basement here. Where he will rescue this maiden, making this the easiest dungeon in the game. Because you just rescue the maiden, no issues, no boss, nothing, right?
Absolutely nothing.
You just walk on, you pick up your golden gloves here, and you walk on out. And a first try dig on cross-product side.
Very impressive.
He's grabbing that arrow pot in the top left there. Again, always just being mindful of your arrow and bomb count in this run is very important.
At this point, the maiden tells Link that she wants to check out this one room just one more time before we leave. And
there's obviously nothing weird about that.
Nothing at all. So, blind fight. Anything that can damage blind does the exact same amount of damage. So we just need to connect hits 3 times per phase to defeat the boss. Casually, it is a pretty dangerous fight. But through the speedrun, your movement determines what blind does, so it becomes a pretty scripted and safe fight overall.
Yeah, it can definitely be, like you mentioned, casually it's a nightmare. And then when you're first picking up the speedrun, it can be very intimidating and overwhelming. But just with enough practice, as long as you get like a decent handle on it, even without getting it perfectly, it becomes one of the easier fights. But then once you really get it down, as you mentioned, it's scripted in such a way that if you do the same thing every time, like the RNG will always be the same essentially. And Ninnyz shows that he knows that fight very well. And so he handedly takes care of blind, and now he's going to kind of loot his way through this village here. Just blowing up someone's house and taking their savings.
Yep, and then going frog hunting along the way, because he's a little bit bored right now. Meanwhile, we have Crush making his way through Thieves Town.
Yeah, so Ninnyz got a couple little housekeeping chores he needs to do for this speedrun to continue optimally. So he needs to pick up these pair of 300 rupee drops for the last big money sink in the game, which is coming up a little bit later. And then he rescues this frog that was trapped in a wall of boulders on a cliff. So it turns out he is a blacksmith, and he can make your legendary magical master sword even better. Which is going to make a lot of the next couple dungeons significantly easier.
Crush Product getting a little bit dinged up in the hellway right there.
Ninnyz missing that fence dash. Shame on him.
Yep, it's only pixel perfect.
Yeah, it's actually surprisingly difficult. You just gotta have like a single frame of movement after that screen transition to move just 2 pixels to the left and then dash up. And you'll slide off of that fence post instead of bonking.
Crush Product realizing he is one hit away from death from basically every enemy remaining in this dungeon. So trying to take those lizards rooms safely so he can get out of there alive.
Yeah, that can be a dangerous place to be, but thankfully you got past the lizard rooms. Those can be very obnoxious, since there's a good amount of RNG to their movement. His next few rooms tend not to be as bad. He picked up an extra heart. He'll be able to pick up a couple more if he desires in these jail cells coming up.
And I'm pretty sure he did cash in that mushroom as well. So primary uses for mushroom. You can turn the bunny beams into fairies as well as the anti-fairies. And then these blue horses, they do have that small heart in their prize pack, so you have a chance to get them to drop it as well. Sitting on pretty good health now for the fight.
Yeah, playing it safe there, clearing out a bunch of the enemies.
Meanwhile, Ninnyz was successful in doing the bomb jump to the fire rod chest. Same basic concept as what we saw in Hera.
Yep, and then he's already mostly done with Skullwood. Skullwood is another kind of labyrinthian dungeon in this game. That when you know exactly what to do, it goes a lot faster. Especially when you compare that with a particular bomb jump. So he is able to just run straight for the big key, take that back, grab the fire rod, and that's his key to the back half of this dungeon. And then he falls down a pit.
That's fine. He'll be fine. Meanwhile, we have Cross Product starting the blind fight. He'll be leaving, basically leaving them around the same time Ninny starts fighting Mothula. And then Cross Product is demonstrating the beauty of having sword beams on this fight. Kind of helps a little bit to manage the fight. Looks like one more hit. There we go. GG Cross.
And then he's just dropping into the moth fight, just as you mentioned you would. Narrowly avoiding the grab as he was falling. The Fall Master there. Nice moth fight on Ninnyz's part. That fight can be one of the easiest, quickest fights in the game, or it can be an absolute nightmare.
And what exactly makes it a nightmare sometimes?
So this is actually one of the fights where that tempered sword makes a huge difference. Since the game expects you to have the Master Sword here, Mothula normally takes 4 or 8 slashes, only 4 off the tempered sword. If you're able to get him with 4 quick hits, it's easy peasy, no problems. But the longer that fight goes, the worse things become. You have a moving floor, you have spikes coming from all directions that are RNG. They do 1 damage. Mothula Contact will do 2 hearts of damage. You shoot some beams in like a 3-way spread. That will also do 2 hearts of damage. And yeah, just as that fight goes on, the more spikes that start moving around, the more stuff that starts to happen in that fight.
And if you happen to hit Mothula into a spike, it overwrites your damage and says you did 0.
Oh yeah, that's kind of a small footnote to that fight, huh?
And we see crossproduct going to Skull Wars with low percent strats. He did not get his Tempered Sword yet.
Yeah, ooh. This is a bold strategy. It's I feel that he's obviously just wanting to rush to the next dungeon here. And that Tempered Sword tends to be pretty darn useful, but more importantly, he also doesn't have any money, which is going to be super important. Because over on Ninny's side, we see him making his way up to the Catfish up here, which gives him Quake, which will be required to enter Total Rock later in the game. And then he's going to make his way up to Zora at the end of this river to pick up the flippers, and that costs 500 rupees, and those are also going to be required to finish the game.
Beautiful bomb jump from crossproduct. He gets a fire rod.
So we'll see. Well, I'm curious to see how crossproduct handles what he does after Moth. And we could also see kind of a live demonstration of why that Tempered Sword can make a big difference on this fight. So as I mentioned, it takes 8 Master Sword slashes or Fire Rod hits. You can start with a Spin Slash, which will do Tempered Sword damage, so that counts for 2.
Yeah,
and you
then
guarantee one at the start of the fight.
And possibly get a double slash spin out of that. Alright, so Ninny's next stop. There's a nice little whirlpool here that's just pretty convenient. And takes him right outside Ice Palace. So since we're there already, we're just gonna hop in there.
Yep, and Ninny's taking a little bit of time there to clear that Zora out of his way. This is one of the few instances where you want to have sword beams. It's very useful for the start of this dungeon. A lot of times they end up getting in your way because they do piddly damage, and you can end up hitting enemies with them instead of your sword slashes. They're very nice for that second room there.
And in some instances, it can cause a little bit of lag.
Yeah, that's true. It's just like you're punished for having full health in this game. Yep. You're trying to go fast.
And Ice Palace is a really fun dungeon. You don't open any chests in here. We don't need the item here. It's just an alternate color for Link.
And Cross going for the hammer strat. Oh, ouch. Yeah, that's, you don't want to see that. The hammer does do Tempered Sword damage, so it can make quicker work of Moth, but it has a much smaller hitbox, and you're really kind of endangering yourself having to get up close. I'm hoping it's around this time where Cross realizes, oh, I need to go get that sword.
So Ninny's setting up for a bomb jump. That was a really fast setup and really nice Ice Palace bomb jump. There is to place the bomb, you have a 3-pixel window on the X position, and then you need to go down just a few pixels, and then that lets you skip basically the entire dungeon. Let's just skip a massive puzzle that requires you to loop around the dungeon a few times.
Yeah, it really breaks the whole dungeon, which is very nice, as you mentioned. The vanilla intended path through this dungeon requires you to make a couple loops around. There we go. That was a very nice low percent moth fight from Cross Product that time.
Just in time for Ninnyz to hop into the cold stare fight. The other reason that we want the sword beams instead coming in is we need full magic hopping into this fight, or else we cannot destroy Cold Stare's shell. Oh, almost got that. Still a really clean fight.
Yeah, I got away from him a little bit at the end there, but very, very good fight. As you mentioned, it takes full magic bar, so 8 fire rod hits to break that shell. And then you want to try to spin slash him over into the top right corner. The spin slash doing additional damage and just giving you a lot easier timing window. And then you kind of just try to corral all 3 of them into the top right corner. So you can do that with some slashes, or you can do like some little poke dashing strats. And then you just kind of want to be looking out for that.
Oh.
Cross product, please.
He's in this tournament to have fun.
Well, I'm hoping that's what most of the people in this tournament are for, so can't hate on that.
Definitely not. He definitely wants his rupees now.
Yeah, so Cross Product examining, trying to figure out what was held on the pedestal in this seed. And he found out it was a Master Sword.
Okay, and at this point in the run, we finally decided to go over to Dungeon 2 of the game. You're expected to have a lot less hearts and a much weaker sword. So, enemies don't really do a whole lot of damage in this one, so this is basically like a little break in terms of difficulty. They're just a bunch of different RNGs that may not slow you down.
Yeah, generally speaking, going into Swamp, as well equipped as Ninnyz is, death isn't really much of a concern. But there are a lot of little ways to lose time in this dungeon by taking additional hits. And then you have movement through water. It's kind of silly in this game and annoying. Alright, Cross Product went back, rescued that Frogsmith, and get himself a shiny new sword. Overall, aside from the moth death, it wouldn't have been that big of an issue. It's a little unfortunate because moths can be just a butthead, and having Master Sword just makes him a bigger butthead. Uh-oh. We do have one more issue over on Cross's side, is he only picked up one of those 300 rupee pickups in Village of Outcasts. Which means once he gets up to Zora, he's not gonna have enough money for the flippers. Zora's gonna be very unhappy. And Zoras traditionally don't like to barter. So he's gonna have to find himself a couple hundred more rupees to get those flippers. Also, interestingly, didn't pick up his mushroom, or turn his mushroom in. I was assuming, so typically a lot of players, when they choose to get the mushroom and trade it in for the powder as a safety, they do so after getting the flute. The other option that saves a little bit of time is to mirror on your way up to Catfish here and turn it in. Looks like Cross realizes he's a couple pennies short here, and footing back over to Kakariko, over into Village of Outcasts. We'll go pick up the 300 rupees he forgot to grab earlier. Which is actually, it's a very easy mistake to make. When I was kind of de-rusting and relearning this run, actually, I would go pick up the Bomb Hut rupees and then just dash right past C-shaped house and forget to pick up those 300 rupees until actually Ninnyz came into my stream and watched me do this once, and he was like, you know what you're gonna do? You're gonna rename your split, your Skullwood split, right now to something that will remind you to get money. Oh. It looks like Cross is pursuing different money-making ventures. Doing the archery game here. The goal of the archery game is to shoot the arrows into those little octopus things. I don't even know what they're supposed to be, but you want to shoot those things in the back and not hit the hands. You get 4 rupees for the first one, and then 8, 12, 16, and 20, and so on. So with good accuracy, you can definitely make a decent profit at this archery game. Meanwhile, Ninnyz making his way to the end of Swamp Palace here. Made sure to pick up some more arrows along his way here. We'll be heading into Argus. And this is definitely one of the fights where Tempered Sword makes a pretty decent difference. It allows you to actually zero cycle this first part, so he never does this little spinning attack if you are just amazing at this game. It's very difficult though. Otherwise, you can just hookshot them and single slash them with the Tempered Sword to take them out. Master Sword would take 2 slashes, so it significantly reduces the time that first phase takes. And then switching to the Fire Rod there, chaining them with 2 quick Fire Rod shots and a spin slash. Can end that second phase in 1 cycle. Cross Product getting his 600 rupees. Doing a little fake flippers to take this portal. Getting to Zora a little bit faster than if he were to fly to the Witch's Hut and run up here. Alright, Cross Product struck a deal with the Zora there, getting the slippers for the 500 rupees, which will allow him to do Swamp Palace earlier, or a little later. I was wondering earlier actually if he was going to hop into Ice Palace first, because you don't necessarily need them to get there if you can fake Flipper.
Meanwhile, Ninnyz is doing his last collection trip before he finishes out the dungeons.
Yeah, gathering the remaining keys he's kind of going to need to finish up. So he's going to need this Ether Medallion from Top Death Mountain to get into the next dungeon. And then one more overworld item he'll need to collect is that Ice Rod that Cross Product just grabbed.
Needed for one specific purpose. So we can kill one boss.
Yep. And it's just tucked away in the corner of the world. With, like, I don't recall much mention of it being made, but absolutely gonna need it. Very easy to forget, actually. Well, I'm only saying that because I've done it once. It's like a real bad feel. If you've ever made it all the way to Trinex's room and then realized, oh, I'm missing that blue ice stick.
Yep, can't get very far without it. The final two dungeons before we head off to Gaena's Harem. These are pretty scary dungeons, and tend to be the primary reason we get most of the safeties if we grab them. Misery Mire, the optimal route requires quite a bit of damage boosting and use of iframes. And shout out to that bird toss.
Yeah, so right away, coming up here is just what we call Mire 2. Second room of Mire, or Links of the Past community is very original names. And there's a very nice Mire 2. That room can be a lot of fun to execute. This is why you want to make sure you have sword beams starting at the start of Mire. Quick sword beam to the right, and then dashing left and up, and then through use of a couple sword beams and the fire rod shot, you can try to take out all those Wizrobes in one cycle.
Okay, meanwhile we have Crossproduct heading into Swamp Palace now.
And we got Ninnyz making his way to the big key in Mire here. Something we didn't really mention earlier is that while you're pushing blocks in this game, they kind of cease to exist in a way. And so there's been a couple instances of abusing that, namely with the mirror. You can actually, there's a glitch in this version of the game that allows you to delete them if you use the mirror while they're moving. But there's some more practical cases or uses of it as well, such as shooting the fire rod through it makes that room that Ninnyz did faster.
Just definitely don't try to erase any blocks when you're inside a dungeon. It might make you a little bit sad. Alright, and now we got Canis and Mario on it for Ninnyz. Let's just make blocks. It also makes a nice little weapon.
Yeah, the Cane of Samaria is definitely one of the more interesting items in this game. He's going to make use of it to get to the back half of this dungeon. And we'll see some more interesting uses of it. Some more fun uses of it kind of near the end of the game. Meanwhile, Cross picked up his small key. He's going to be heading over to the left side of Swamp here to pick up his big key. And there's Ninnyz demonstrating the secondary function of the Cane of Samaria there. Using it when a block is already out causes it to shoot in the 4 cardinal directions. So some use of that can be to kill weak enemies, or to kind of hit switches like that by exploding it and dashing.
Okay, and then Ninnyz has a potential for a scary Vitreous fight coming up.
Yeah.
He's gonna be I mean, as long as he doesn't get eyeballed, he'll be perfectly fine. So the goo outside surrounding Vitreous does only 1 heart of damage, but if you get hit by an eyeball or by a Vitreous or his lightning, it does 4 hearts. So, ouch.
Yeah.
So he was trying to get himself positioned to do that, and then at the 2 hearts, he switched to bow so we can try to get rid of them before that happened. But and then he's hopping right back in there, getting ready to take Vitreous out.
Unfortunately, he went in there with 6 hearts, which is kind of like minimally you are looking to have 7 to really make sure that you can do the damage boosting spin / strat.
You could get away with getting away with only 4 hearts of damage doing the strats. So 5 is the absolute minimum needed.
That's true. It's just you kind of want a little blanket there. Because it can be very hard to necessarily move in and out optimally so that you only take the 1 damage from the goo. And so he dropped to 2 hearts early there, and then the fight can become an absolute nightmare as those eyeballs start charging you and they become hard to hit. He was trying to hit him with the bow there because they do a lot of damage to eyeballs, but between the lightning and the eyeballs charging you, it can be very tough to deal with. So hopefully he's making his way back here. He's got 9 hearts right now, so hopefully he goes into this fight with a little bit more health.
Yep, and now we got crossproduct finding Argus. Should have this finish up a little bit before Ninnyz makes it back to Vitreous.
Unfortunately, it's a little late on that last puff grab there. So even though Argus didn't have any more puff balls, he still tried to do that spin attack. Making the fight take a little bit longer, but not a big deal.
Yeah, Argus has to finish the attack that he started before he starts the next attack. Alright, let's see if Ninnyz get this cleaned up pretty well.
It's gone much better.
He's not going to have enough arrows to take care of the last part, but that's fine. It's pretty safe once. It's just the big eye hopping around.
Yeah, once you get to this phase, it's a very safe fight. You just ideally want 7 or 8 arrows to take out that eyeball a lot faster. But once you get to that phase, you're not really in any danger of dying as long as you don't miss time of slash or anything. It's a nice recovery on Ninnyz's part. Both of them in a crystal cutscene, because that swamp maiden, she'll talk your ear off.
It is the longest cutscene in the game. Forget how many seconds it is exactly, but almost a minute or so.
Yeah, it's very, very close to a minute. It can be a nice little rest for your fingers, I guess. Even though I guess you're mashing, so not really.
Alright, Crossproduct is coming back to Ice Palace now. Just coming with that extra heart from Swamp just to make this dungeon a little bit safer. Meanwhile, Ninnyz is going to make his way to Turtle Rock now.
Yeah, and he's on a very good pace. It's really unfortunate that he took that Vitreous death, actually.
Yep. And then this game is pretty brutal.
I want to take a look at his splits real quick. Yeah, he was definitely... He was like not even half a minute past or behind his PB going into Meyer, so that's unfortunate.
That's really good.
Yeah, so he was definitely on a possible 130 pace there until the death, but he will still be getting a very good time, assuming no more major mishaps.
To only be about half a minute behind is with that death, because that's a few minutes lost, a good minute or so lost.
He's like about 2.5 minutes behind now.
Oh, 2.5. Okay, thought you just said half right there.
No, he was half a minute before the death. Sorry.
Okay.
That'd be absolutely insane. We got cross product at the ice house bomb jump now. This is a tricky trick, and cross product having a little bit of trouble here.
Yeah, second hardest bomb jump of the game.
Yeah, and it's one you really want to be able to get, because as we mentioned when Ninnyz is here, it cuts out a huge portion of this dungeon. But getting that set up can be tough, and then if you mess it up, it's very easy, at least for me personally, to get tilted when you start messing it up.
Yeah, it's definitely... Ice Palace in general is definitely a dungeon where you'll see the most quits if something goes pretty bad. The last thing you want to ever see in a run is dying to Cold Stare.
Yeah, dying to Cold Stare is a monstrous time loss. I think it's like what the worst boss to have to backtrack to.
And you have to find a magic immediately to do anything in Ice Palace again.
Yeah.
So
typically,
your options are you can either farm the enemies right outside the portal to Ice Palace, because they have a lot of magic drops in their prize pack, or just come back to this dungeon later right after beating another dungeon with that full magic again.
Yeah, typically when you see that happen in a race format, that player will head to Swamp if they haven't done that yet. Otherwise, they could go do Mire, or they have to find magic in some way.
Those floating skull lads taking one for the team. Definitely didn't want Ninnyz to get that key.
Yeah, Turtle Rock is a very interesting dungeon. Compared to kind of the dungeons before it, you have like Mire, you have Ice Palace, you have Skullwoods, you have Thieves Town. They kind of are very maze-like. They're labyrinthian and a little bit of complicated to navigate through. Turtle Rock is a much more linear and straightforward dungeon, but it's definitely when things kind of jump up in damage again. Almost everything here will deal 4 hearts of damage to you in green mail.
Oh yeah. No, it just has a couple mini mazes within rooms itself, but still pretty straightforward overall. And Cross Product is making his way over to the... I guess I must have grabbed that big key already. Yeah. So now he's got to make his way all the way down to the basement. Then he's got to flip a switch in the basement, come back up, and then make his way back to where he was.
Yeah, so all this work that Cross Product has done through this dungeon in the past couple minutes is what doing that one little bomb jump avoids. Oh, and he's gonna pick up blue mail. Might as well while you're here.
Yeah, might as well. Key.
Not only will that reduce damage, but you get a nice stylish banana hat.
Everyone's favorite. Alright, Ninnyz making his way over to the final crystal boss of the game.
This ominous trek through this room.
Crowd's opting for those for some fairies before he heads over there.
So this right here is the sole reason we have to go out of our way to get that ice rod tucked away in the corner of the overworld. Trinex's got a nice head and a fire head. You gotta hit him with the opposite rod, and then 5 quick slashes with your tempered sword will take him out. And then his whole body explodes like crazy, and you take out his 3rd remaining head.
And for whatever reason, this is the only boss where the heart that drops after you kill him doesn't show up where you kill it. Just kind of spawns in the middle of the room for whatever reason. Cross opting to show up for a bomb jump here rather than. Nope, I guess he wants to use the switch shot now.
He's got to save a couple bombs for later. And that can be... I don't know, I have surprising trouble with that bomb jump, actually. What happened to Crossproduct has been on a journey. He has been playing this game the way it's meant to be played.
Pretty much. He had some unfortunate forgetting of some items. So he's kind of had to reroute on the fly.
Yeah, there's been a combination of things. He didn't grab the money or tempered sword after Thieves Town. And then, unfortunately, he had some issues with the Ice Palace bomb jump. And so he just played it vanilla. He's demonstrating the full extent of Ice Palace to the fans. It was a very nice Cold Stare fight. And we have Ninnyz working through Ganondorf Tower, which is... honestly, it's a really fun dungeon to execute.
Not a whole lot going on in this lower section of Ganondorf here right now. We just kind of need to make our way to the big key so we can climb up to the top. And everything still does quite a bit of damage to you. Ninnyz is going to be looking for some arrows pretty soon. He's going to be a few short for almost 2. But the room right before that, right before he falls into there, will have more than enough arrows for him. He'll need to grab this chest spot on the other side of this anti-fairy.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot going on in the basement of Ganondorf Tower until about this moment where you drop into Ice Armos. Same general strategy that applied to original Armos, where you want to kill the last 2 kind of really close to each other to skip that enraged phase. And very nicely done on Ninnyz's side there. Grab himself the big key and some more arrows for his climb up, and he'll mirror out.
And at this point, the game wants to throw everything that it's got at you to prevent you from getting to Ganon, saving the princess, saving the world, that sort of thing.
Yeah, this is where the game really starts to test you and put all your skills to the test. And definitely as a speedrun, it gets very tricky. A very nice mix, too. And a smooth spike room there, dashing cleanly down on his way to this cannon room. Just casually stroll through all the cannon fire.
Just in time for Gauntlet. Series of rooms where you need to kill every single enemy. Keeps giving you more and more obstacles on top of these conveyor belts. And let's just see our favorite friend, the Beamos, again.
Yeah, this room in particular can be really obnoxious. Okay, you got the remaining horse head there. He likes to go to the top of the screen a lot and just kind of like taunt you from up there.
And those Beamos really like to take one for the team. And then that was a pretty good gauntlet.
Yeah, all in all, that was a really good gauntlet. He side there, he's gonna enter land mode 2. Unfortunately missing a couple fire rod shots there. Each one will be taken out by 2 fire rod shots. Spin slash with the tempered sword will also do the equivalent amount of damage. So you're looking for a combination of 2 fire rod shots or 2 spin slashes, or 4 normal slashes. And this is where the real fun usage of the Cane of Samaria comes into play here. These Wizard brooms kind of just feel like they were made for the cane. The Wizards being glass cannon enemies, they will do a ton of damage to you, but they will also die very easily.
Actually, almost anything that hurts them.
And with them kind of in a formation that allows you to hit multiple of those Wizards with the cane, it just feels a lot of fun to execute. Entering this torch room without much magic, actually with no magic. Thankfully Ninnyz his Daps quickly goes and grabs the 2 magic pickups there and lights all the torches. And then he's dropping a few extra bombs there, making sure nothing's weighing him down as he enters the very final segments of the game here.
Oh, we missed a fake powder usage from crossproduct.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if that happened. I was like watching Ninnyz and I looked over at crossproduct. He's sporting the mushroom at the end of Meyer here.
And so we've got synchronized boss fights. Aghanim 2. It's very similar to the first time we saw him, except he kind of clones himself twice with 2 ghost images. These 2 images, they will always fire the yellow balls that you can reflect back. So whether or not Aghanim shoots a blue ball or not isn't as big of a deal, as you'll always be able to at least damage him with at least 1 thing every cycle. And pretty clean fight.
That was a really good Aghanim too. Yeah, I'm bad at Link to the Past geometry, so that fight can be really rough. As you mentioned, the yellow balls are nice since they do take out kind of a decent amount of the RNG factor there, but it can still be easy to be messed up by those blue balls or bad patterns.
Just the position itself. And enter Ganon fight. So what Ninnyz needs to do, he needs to do 12 slashes worth of damage between this time and before Ganon starts bringing his Strident again.
Very clean phase 1.
Very nice 1-on-1. The big goal is for those first 2 phases is they only last 1 time each. You have a little bit of a limited time to get all the damage in.
Yeah, especially that phase 2 can be a little tricky. But Ninnyz made very good use of the poke dash and strat. And he's on his way, not many Ganon warps, on his way to phase 4.
Alright, so he's trying to release spin so that it hits Ganon right before he warps away. He has to do this 12 times. This little window is what allows us to skip Gold Sword and Silver Arrows. Looks like Cross Product skipped a Gold Sword as well, so he's going to be doing a pretty similar fight.
This is just a textbook phase 4 fight. He's getting a lot of triples. This is very wow. That was a really good Ganon fight.
That was extremely good. And then those are some really nice patterns to see on phase 4 as well. And GG to Ninnyz. 133 flat on his timer. Official Speed Racing TV time is 1:33:02. So send your GGs out to him, and we'll see if he'll hop in for an interview.
Yeah, that's a very good time, especially considering the unfortunate death on Vitreous there, costing him a couple minutes. But he executed just beautifully through the rest of the game after that. So meanwhile, we have Cross Product making his way through Turtle Rock. Grabbing a small key, a little roller room, using a walkout. You can opt to mirror out instead. It costs about 5 seconds or so, depending on how well you handle the roller room.
Yeah. And we are joined by Ninnyz, the supreme champion of this race. How do you feel?
I feel pretty good. Outside of the death of Vitreous, I feel pretty good.
Yeah, that was unfortunate, but still, like, 133. You did very well. All things considered, you're losing a couple minutes there. Because it looked like you were about 30 seconds behind your PB or so going into Meyer, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I was a little bit ahead. I mean, the biggest thing that I was, like, super excited about is, like, I like, exclaimed if my mic would have been on. As soon as I got to Eastern and I beat Eastern sub 11, that's actually been, like, a huge goal that I've been trying to go for, and, like, that just really got me amped up.
Yeah, that was very good. You're right. Like, I think you just snuck under there with, like, a 10:59 sort up.
Yeah, it's what really helped was getting the because I matched my golds on both of those, so it was a 5:53 escape and it was a 10:59 Eastern.
Yeah, and that kind of just set the mood for the rest of your run. Like, you did extremely well outside of that Vitreous fight. And, like, you recovered very nicely afterwards, too.
Yeah, I pretty much only had, like, one option. It was just, like, the problem with Vitreous for me recently is just, like, when I do the second part of the quick viddy, I'll have the sword down, but I usually, like, end up poking one of the eyeballs as of late, so that's what kind of threw me off.
Yeah, and the first time that you went in, I think you went in with 5 hearts, or was it 6 hearts? Just enough to get the WQ viddy.
Yeah, I actually went on the left side for the crystal switch because I was trying to get like the heart, but I completely forgot about the pathway of the of like how the anti-fairy goes, and so like it was just moot at that point.
I kind of thought you were going to get ready to start farming the slimes a little bit that were falling.
I probably should have, but I mean, like, regardless, the RNG and how I reacted to it was just, that's what cost me the death.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, it's unfortunate, but it's still a very, very nice run. Very nice race. Meanwhile, we have cross-product kind of going through this silly firebar maze room. He's been on quite an adventure on his run.
Oh yeah. We even got to see the arrow game earlier. It was pretty cool.
So Ninnyz, congratulations on being set to advance to the bracket stage.
Thank you, thank you. That's really my biggest goal for this tournament, was to get there.
That's a very good goal to set. I don't know. I think you can make a decent way through that bracket stage. I feel like, I mean, you're so close to that sub 130 now. I feel like you've improved actually quite a bit in the past like couple months.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. Almost every run that I go through, as soon as I hit Eastern and I get a good Eastern, I'm already on sub 130 pace. I just need to keep it going through the rest of the run.
Yep. So you might see that before the end of this tournament. You're too close to not get it pretty soon.
Yeah, I was actually like, I was contemplating hovering over Moldarm 2 just because since I took that Viddy death.
Might as well.
I mean, but like, if you saw a couple of times, I was actually trying to test my rhythm on like some of the spots where I was just like testing my movement and seeing if I could get it.
It's a fun start. It's a fun thing to do, especially since you know how to do the hookshot list 1-1 on Ganon.
Yeah, that took me a while to get down. Shoutouts to Pinkus and Timon for their Ganon tutorial.
Yeah, your Ganon fight was just like amazing. It was beautiful. You had a very clean 1-1. Got good luck on the Ganon warps, and then you were just nailing the triples in phase 4.
I was also pretty happy. I was maintaining to get most of the quick warps, but more importantly, I was also getting like the really high crystal catches, so the animation was a little bit shorter. I was basically trying my hardest to, like, since I was behind, to try to like make up any kind of seconds that I could, but like I think outside of having a good Turtle Rock, a good G Tower, and a sub 2 Ganon like I got now, I don't even think that I would have PB'd even with like the pace that I was going on.
Would have been extremely close. Still a really good run overall.
Yeah, I think my 3 races for this tournament was I got like a 134x, and then I got my PB with a 130.28 for my second race, and my third one. This one was 133 flat. So I feel pretty confident with going on to brackets. Whoever my opponent is, I believe it's going to be based off of time. So as long as I stay consistently within like this area and don't have any deaths, like I think outside of that death, I probably would have finished somewhere around like 130, 131.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
So how the brackets works though, it is average race time and your in-group record. Since you already got the 3 wins, that automatically puts you on there. The seeding for the brackets is based on your best individual race time. So it's going to be based off that 130.28.
I actually didn't win 3. I only won 2. I could not defeat Blunt Bunny.
You had the 1-1. I just messed it up, but let's see. It should still get you in the brackets though. Alright, crossproduct making good progress along his way to the big King Tower now.
Yeah, he's on his way to Ice Armos with plenty of arrows in hand. Opting not to shoot a couple arrows into that left Armos there. Just not going for the quick kill, just playing it safe and sound and taking out Ice Armos pretty easily. Making his way up through the first Mimic's room here. And getting through Mimic's 2 without too much trouble. Meanwhile, Ninnyz is just taking his anger out on this wall in Mire.
Meanwhile, we have crossproduct entering the gauntlet. Nice first room.
And then Gauntlet 4 giving him some trouble there. That one can definitely get tricky if one of those guys gets away from you there, since it's so hard to navigate around the the ice and the conveyors.
Those were some sick dodges of those lasers, just barely missing.
Clean Lambo 2 there. Just barely missing the one cycle on cross product side.
Then he's trying to get that hover down. Hovering, so
That's a thing.
it's a thing. How it works is, while you are doing the charge up of your dash animation, the game won't let Link fall. And then you have exactly one frame where the game doesn't make Link fall right after release. So,
So it essentially requires a particular rhythm to it. You can only let go of that A button for a single frame before repressing it.
and then going downwards, each time you move that frame, you move exactly 1 pixel. And there's a lot more than 1 pixel between in that gap.
Yeah, I'd say there's at least, like, I don't know, 10.
It's 30 tiles. It'll be like 16 or so. Not 16, but can't math today. 12, something like that.
Maybe. Aren't tiles are what, 8 by 8, aren't they?
I believe so.
Okay, so it'd be 24-ish. Math. Speaking of math, we're gonna go into the geometry fight. Math is impossible.
Very impossible.
So we'll see if... I mean, cross product should be good at math. His name is cross product, so... See if he has his protractor ready here. Got a nice pattern there for the first one.
Oh, this is the timing of those first. You kind of threw them off, so we couldn't get that next one in. There we go. Pretty nice fight.
So yeah, four cycle I get to you is pretty good.
Alright, enter gaining for our cross product. Let's see if he gets that 1-to-1. Just barely missing it, no big deal. Gives him a really nice position to get the easy 1 cycle for phase 2.
Yeah, you really want to see this top right corner line up. So it just lets you hit the easy double spin slashes on him.
Not playing very nice with the warps already.
Yeah, the Ganon warps are kind of like the egg and blue ball situation, where he just has like he flips a coin and decides if he's gonna warp again.
Except there's no real limit on how many. There's no real maximum on how many times he can warp. Alright, final part. Stretch of the run for Cross. Big concern for him is making sure he doesn't get accidentally knocked off.
I'm putting that one on you.
I'll take that one.
Unfortunately, he takes a fall there, and I'm just gonna have to reset the whole fight. I mean, it happens. It just happens to the best of us. Sometimes
and
you get unlucky, and I mean, like, even look at Ninnyz. He's fallen like several dozen times in the past couple minutes.
yeah, and then especially in the Ganon fight, you see the most. I'll just say the most obscene damage knockback from Ganon. It's like sometimes it's a bit extreme sometimes.
Yeah, those fire bats that he shoots in phase 4 have like just an insane like potential to knock you like literally across the entire arena. Oh, and Ninnyz getting the hover.
GG. It's a really hard trick to get down the first time. And it's definitely one of those techniques that you don't want to let get too rusty if you ever intend to actually use it in a run. Alright, start. Let's go ahead and start off phase 4 for cross products. The big trick on here is knowing how to lure the bats around and have yourself start close enough so you can lure it and make it again in time so you can get that spin off.
Yeah, you definitely want to make good use of kind of cardinal direction movement in this fight, which cross product is doing very well.
Then you also see him wait to a specific time to start lighting up to relight those torches. You don't see him just immediate relighting it. You essentially you want to wait. You want the fire to connect like right after he finishes his teleport. That way he doesn't just start with a fire bat as soon as the torch gets lit. And that's what makes the 3 hits per second a little bit possible. And nice bonk on the final doorway, and a GG to cross product. With a finishing time on speedracing.tv 1:54.17.
Yeah, it was definitely a smooth phase 4 second time around.
Alright, and then we'll have cross product joining us pretty shortly. In the meantime, I'm going to get a quick look at the calendars, see how much time we have. Okay, coming up pretty soon on this channel, we'll be able to have a quick word with cross product really fast, And then we do have to hand it over to Link to the Past randomizer coming up. It's going to be Sabatina versus Oyster. Speed Gaming 1 is going to see a lot of Link to the Past. Actually, all the channels are pretty much tonight.
Yeah, I know coming up in about an hour, there's going to be the Pick-a-Pal's Lord J. Bradley match on Speed Gaming 1. That'll be followed by the Joe D'Amelio versus Dodecahedron match, which is going to be featured on the front page, I believe.
We're not quite sure right now. There was a little bit of a mishap earlier today. Somehow earlier today, 11 o'clock a.m. to 1 p.m. got featured.
Oh.
So we're still trying to get that reconfirmed. That it's going to be good again.
Whoops, I hadn't heard that.
No, we've been trying to wait it on, try not to say it's not going to happen, but we'll see. It was planned to be front page, but yes. Then after the current race on Speed Gaming 3, we get to see a fun tournament, a fun game of Shantae and the Pirate's Curse.